Hello again, and welcome to the Noble Father podcast. Today is March the 25th, 2024, and man, it's been a wonderful week, and there's been so many things going on. For one, it's spring break. My kids are enjoying time off school, which also means they're spending a lot of time at home, and they're having conflicts with each other, and my kids are just not. They're at the point where the littlest facial inflections and expressions can cause them to be in conflict with one another. I am your host, Theophilus, and I just want to say, if you are listening to this on the audio podcast, this episode today would be better watched on YouTube. I'm going to be referencing a scene from a movie, and it's gonna tie in very well, this week, and also with the episode I put out last week. Last week, I talked about suicide and depression and anxiety in young people today, and it's a very real problem that we're facing in today's age. As an adult myself, looking at everything that's going on in the world around me, it's very easy to be hopeless and helpless and feel unmotivated, or to be very discouraged about the future of this world. We're seeing wars, we're seeing terrorist attacks, we're seeing outright corruption, we're seeing a normalization of pedophilia and these woke things that are going on in the world, that people are and society is wanting us to validate, is a precursor to even worse things to come, and it's sad, the world that we're living in right now. I do want to say something about that today, and I went to church yesterday, and as we were about to leave, we're hurrying out to go, catch Dune 2 in the theaters. My kids went over to my sister's place, their aunt's place, to have a sleepover and, go to Science World and spend time with them and give mom and dad a break. So my wife and I, Saturday night, we caught Dune 1, the first installment of the Dune movie, the Dune series. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a Dan Villeneuve movie, about the book Dune, and caught the first installment, and then we were like, oh, let's go catch the second one. It was purposeful. We wanted to catch the second one, and so with the kids out, just go catch the second one together. Mind you, this is only the second time as being parents, we're maybe a little too present. We're very present. It's too present to be exact. This is only the second time we've had our kids not sleep with us. Doing a sleepover. First time was with my parents, and the other time was with this past Saturday, so 2 days ago. And so we're hurrying out from church to go catch this movie, and a member of our community, a mother, came over and, quickly, just like tears welling in her eyes, came to me and just showing gratitude to me for the episode I put out about the depression and the anxiety and the suicide, and her heart was aching for her two sons, and that instantly pulls on my heartstrings, right? Because, I understand her feelings, not from the perspective of a mother. My kids are not in their teenage years yet. They're not in their young adult years yet. And so the rebellious years that I inevitably anticipate is coming, I resonated with her from the perspective of her sons. I underwent my own prodigal son journeys, and so I completely understand why somebody with a religious background would venture away from God, away from church, away from community, to find their own way and to find their own answers. And that's really what this episode is going to be about, and it ties into Dune as well. And so, I hope you don't, and I'm okay with it. If you want to pause this episode or turn this off now because you're scared of spoilers for the movie, please do so. Don't don't listen to this. Don't watch this right now until you watch it, because it is so amazing and so applicable to that journey. That was a very surreal experience for me. And I do want to say something about that, is that you might not be a father listening to this, but we can all distill information from different sources. And, that's something that you'll hear me reiterate again and again, is that you might not be a Christian listening to my podcast. You might not be a father listening to my podcast. You might not be an Asian or somebody with a pastor's kid background, missionary's kid background, or spent time in South America, but you can take away information you can distill information for yourself based on anything I've shared. And that's what I encourage you to do. You might have heard me say earlier about the woke stuff. You might be somebody who has the belief that that is okay. You might have a belief that, this world that we're living in isn't corrupt, or that, scary to say, pedophilia is okay. I don't know. You can distill information for yourself and be convicted of what you feel is right or wrong. And so that's what I wanted to say. This episode, and the conversation with the mother at the church there, it's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm not looking forward to that journey as well. I'm not looking forward to those years where my children rebel or take their inheritance and walk out and try to figure out and fend for themselves. Ultimately, that journey has to be undertaken, and to understand what light is, we need to spend time in the darkness. Not that is absolutely necessary, and there are going to be those who don't agree with what I've just said. But I've come to reconcile that journey that I undertook. It had to be the way that I underwent it, and it had to be dark because there'd be no appreciation for the light. And it takes a lot of faith. My parents was a good example of that. They didn't pressure and didn't push me. They didn't come into my room every Sunday and say, "Hey, get out of bed, and we're going to church," like forcing me to go. They never did that. They may have made the mistake of, in my childhood years, bribing me with McDonald's breakfast to go to church. I lived and died for those hash browns. I'm big on the hash browns and the sausage and egg McMuffins. And so, using those things to bribe us later on was just like, why are we going to church? Like, what's the point of this? Like, when I turned 18, I was like, and I'd grown up in church hurt, with church hurt, and that's kind of a term of like being hurt by the church, by people and members at a church. And these are things that I've reconciled within myself. And this is something I want to say too, before I go into the scene and, the topic of the Father and the Son, is that this is a great analogy of it. So I'm not very instrumental. Like, I don't play instruments very well. And so let's just envision me going up on stage, on a piano and playing Beethoven, playing a song, a composition of Beethoven, on the piano. And I play it so bad, and I play it so terrible, and it causes you to have trauma, and it hurts you, based on my rendition of Beethoven. You wouldn't blame Beethoven for a bad rendition of his music. You would blame me for a bad rendition of Beethoven. Now, the same could be said about church, is that you go to a church and the people give a rendition of God, of what God's love is to you. Maybe they judged you, or they did something that rubbed you the wrong way, and it wasn't a good rendition of God. We, for whatever reason, mankind, humans, people, will say and blame God for a bad rendition of man in his church. And so that's something we must reconcile within ourselves, is why are we blaming the creator or the composer of music when the people playing it are the ones that gave a poor rendition or gave a wrong representation? And so maybe that'll hurt, maybe that'll help you. I don't know. Reconcile that within yourself. Is that true for you? Is your church hurt something you blame God on? And if it is, I'd encourage you to think of how man could have done this to you and what man could have done to you. Because, the God I believe in is a God of love. My God doesn't believe in judging other people. He doesn't believe in hating other people. People can twist God's words and make it fit any kind of condition or rhetoric or belief. And so that's something that I'll caution you against, is that maybe your hurt did not come from God. Actually, I know for a fact the hurt did not come from God. And didn't come from God, but could come from God as well. Because just like the prodigal son journey, you have to experience the dark in order to experience the light. My experience going to different churches all through my upbringing, I've never found a community like the one I go to now. If I didn't have those experiences, a positive outcome of that would be that I would not know what a good community is and what a bad community is. And so because I've had church hurt and bad communities and been part of bad communities, I know what a good community looks like. And so in my pain, God could still use that pain to bring about his purpose and his will. And that's the power of God, is that he can take man's errors and use it for his will. So I want to transition, right? It's not really transition. It's still kind of the same topic here. And I want to play this scene from Dune, the very first installment. I want to set the stage for you so you understand what is going on. And this is the part where spoilers come in, right? Is that they are a great house, and they are now being called by the emperor to go to a planet, and to a different planet from their home planet, to take over the production of a certain resource that they need in the galaxy. And so there's this not conflict, but it's a political game of chess, and the father is essentially saying goodbye to his home world. And because this political chess move means that inevitably, or there's a high likelihood that war is coming, he may never see this home world again. And so the father is essentially saying goodbye to his home planet. And there's a scene where his son, the prince of the house, of the great house, is having an interaction with his dad. And this fits very much with the topic last week and the topic this week of father. I won't say anything more. I want to make sure that I play this because it is absolutely amazing. And again, if you want to pause here, don't want to see this part, or you want to watch this in video, I would recommend you go and tune into the YouTube video version of this podcast. You can see what it is that is being said, and also the scene that's being filmed. It's absolutely amazing, the script, and I want you to really pay attention to what is being said and the meaning behind the words of the scene. It is absolutely a phenomenal scene. Okay, here we go.
Father, I'd like to ask to join Duncan, Idaho on a scout mission to Arrakis tomorrow. I've studied the Fremen language. I'd be an asset.
Out of the question. They'll travel in a few weeks to Arrakis like the rest of us.
I've been training my whole life. What is the point if I'm not allowed to face some
know
actual
why,
risk?
Paul? You're the future of House Atreides.
And grandfather fought bulls for sport.
Yes. Look where that got him. I need you by my side. When we get to Arrakis, we'll face enormous danger.
What danger? Fremen? The desert?
Political danger. The great houses look to us for leadership, and this threatens the Emperor. By taking Arrakis from the Harkonnens and making it ours, he sets the stage for a war, which would weaken both houses. But if we hold firm and tap the true power of Arrakis, we could be stronger than ever.
What does that mean? Mining spice, keeping the Fremen in their place? We'd be no better than Harkonnens.
No. By making an alliance with the Fremen. That's what I've sent Duncan, Idaho to arrange. Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power. I want you sitting in on my council. Learn what I do.
What if I'm not, Dad?
Not what?
The future of House Atreides.
I told my father I didn't want this either. I wanted to be a pilot.
You never told me that.
Your grandfather said, a great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it. And he answers. And if your answer is no, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be. My son. I found my own way to it. Maybe you'll find yours. In their memory, give it a try.
I mean, there's so much to that. I'm blown away by the scene because it's, if you didn't watch it on the video and you're just tuning in on audio, is that the scene where the father tells him he didn't, I also told my father I didn't want this. It was actually him taking off his glove and revealing a signet ring, which, if you hear me talk about the prodigal son journey all the time, is that signet ring is, it's everything. It's the power. It's the representation. It is the right to lead. It is the representation of the family. It is the legacy of the family. It is the lineage that his family bears. It is the House Atreides. It's everything. It's their house. It's them. It's their identity, and that is very much the story of the prodigal son, right? When the son comes over that hill, returning to his legacy, returning to his rightful birthright, the father does not question his son, does not put him with the servants because he had done this to his father. He gives him back his place because that is never in question. His identity is never in question. And it's amazing to me because, you know, that's how the devil would attack us. He would always come and question our identity and say, just as what Paul in the scene says, what if I'm not? Like almost like, what if I'm not cut out for this? What if I'm not meant to be this or whatever? That is essentially the attack that devil would always make, is that he'll say, look at all these things that you've done. Look at all these things that you are, and question you, make you question, and keep you further away from that identity. And I especially like the part where he says, the part where he goes, oh, I'm losing my train of thought here. You may not, I need to find that scene. I need to find that part, because
Your grandfather said, a great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it. And he answers. And if your answer is no,
right, called to it, and he answers it. He answers that call. And I picture this scene, not just me with my my father, my earthly father, but I think of it from me and my spiritual father, right? God in heaven as my spiritual father. This noble father journey, the road that I've been on has been one in which God put me on a path of being a leader, put me on the path of leading this community, leading this podcast. There was a fork in the road there. There was a decision that I had to make. There was unworthiness leading into this podcast. There was a lot of resistance coming into this, thinking I am not worthy to be that person. I am not worthy to be speaking into the lives of fathers. I'm not worthy of that signet ring. And yet, as I've gone on this journey and as I continue on, I realize that it is without a question that I was called to lead in this way. And that's God at work, is that I'm not called or qualified to do it. And, I want to, there's a continuation of this, because, in the second installment, and again, this is where the spoilers is, going to come in, right? Is please be warned. There's a scene in the second one where Paul Atreides is holding the signet ring is wearing the signet ring on his hand, and he utters the words, "Father, I've found my way." And at this point his dad is already dead. And he'd been betrayed and backstabbed by the emperor himself, and because they had attained so much power that the emperor felt it was right to cull them with the Harkonnens. Harkonnens were the guys who were originally on the planet, formed and used them to kill off the house Atreides, and so Paul is by himself. He's the only remnants of the bloodline of his family. And the scene where he's in the desert and he's wearing the signet ring, and he utters the words, "Father, I've found my way." It was so beautiful, and I remember in that moment watching that movie, in that scene, as he said that, and I think to myself, as a father with a son as well, I would want to hear those words as well. I would want to hear my son tell me, "Father, I've found my way." In essence, I've found my purpose. I've found what I've been called to do with this life. And that's one of the things about Noble Father is I am setting, not just speaking into the voice of fathers, not speaking into the life of fathers, not just doing community for fathers, but also this whole journey has been an experiment, a showing of what it means to be living in your purpose and living in your identity, and taking up that mantle of leadership based on what God has given you individually. All of the things that I've done in my life, the experience that I've gotten, the strengths and the gifts and the weaknesses that God has given me, all come into account when I do the Noble Father work. And that's what I want every single father to experience, is that we can't tell our kids to live their life to their fullest if we're not living our life to our fullest, not maximizing the gifts and the experiences and the things that we've been given to its fullest. God gave us this fork in the road. You either live for me, or you live for society, or you live for yourself. You got to choose. You can't be 1 foot in on one side and 1 foot on the other. That path splits, and you cannot have a foot on both sides. You need to be all in on one. Either you live with the direction God is calling you to be, maximizing everything he has given you, risking it all, really, leaving your home planet to go to a new planet, to continue on the legacy of your family. Or you can be safe, rebel, stay on the home planet, reject the call of the emperor, and fight the war your own way and figure your way out of it, right? Essentially killing yourself off, because now you're against God. You are against the emperor, right? And yeah, maybe that's, based on the storylines, they answer the call and they go and they still get backstabbed, right? God will never do that to you. God would never backstab you. God would never take your obedience and shove it back in your face and try to annihilate you and wipe you out. What he calls you to do, he will pay for. What he calls you to do, he will make things align, stars align. I'm not saying that it's difficult and it's all smooth sailing from there on out. There are risks that you must take. There are things that you will have to be obedient in. There will be things that you will have to do that will not sit well with you, right? That's what total obedience looks like. And I want to speak to those parents who have children who are away from the house, or they're on their prodigal son journey, and they are distant from you, distant from God, and seeking their own way. In my journey, my parents never forced me. They never pushed me. They knew that it was just as God gives us free will to discover and make that relationship decision, the same as parents we should do. And this is something that I'm working my way towards, is to be very unattached to my children one day when they become teenagers or young adults. But at the same time, I must preempt that by being as foundational with them as I can right now and being as present as I can with them right now. Is there a chance that they won't go down the prodigal son journey? Absolutely. I've seen it happen before. There are members of my community who have children who are now adults, and they've I don't know. I don't think they've ever undergone that journey. I mean, their foundation is so firm that it seems like they would not venture from that. As if they know that I've tasted the light, I understand the light. Why would I want to experience the darkness? So there is that too. Not every single journey has to undergo the prodigal son journey. And so partly I am staying as present as I can, trying to be as foundational as I can in this journey with my children, hoping that whenever the teenage years and the young adult years, they don't need to take away their inheritance, right? The story of the prodigal son journey, the older brother also stays behind and continues to be obedient and loyal to the family and stays behind, does not take the inheritance and run off and do that. So there is that other half, that other possibility. If you're a parent of a child who's gone out, the best way to approach that situation is really to let God do his thing, is to really remove ourselves and to let God move. Now, that's not to say you just let them have free reign and kick them out and let them do their own thing. There is a loving way to do it, and there is a way to do it without pushing, right? It's the same way I would say you would encounter or face evangelism. When it's about your words, you've already done the wrong thing. You've already overstepped your place. It is not your words that convinces a person to come to church. It is not your words that helps a person discern the matters of the words in the Bible. It's not your spirit that is moving this person's spirit. It is God's spirit. It is God's moving. It is God's timing that moves a person into coming to church or wanting to foster a relationship with somebody. wants fostering a relationship with God. It is God's moving. It is God's timing. It is God's doing. It is not us as human beings to do that. And so for our children, we are called as parents to be a representation of God as well. We are called to love in unconditional manner with our children. And so whatever they're facing, we can be patient, we can be graceful, we can be loving with them, and we can be encouraging to them without pushing the boundary. We need to respect their maturity, and we need to respect that they have that free will as well. We need to respect that God has given them that free will to discover these things for themselves. And you really want that. You want it to be a personal journey. You do not want it to be about you. You don't want your children to go to church because of you, because you said it. You want them to go to church because they see a relationship with God is the best thing for them. And so, I know it's hard. The difficulty with this journey is that you're scared. You are anxious of the times. You are desperate and scared that, God could come back anytime. Jesus could return anytime, and time is up. And that is a very real world concern. But I think a God of love understands that as well. And I think we are all subject to God and his timing. If he chooses to do it tomorrow and my children haven't made the decision, what say do I have, right? He will have to draw the line, and that line event inevitably will cut off people that we love. As hard as that is to say, and as difficult that is to comprehend and understand, that's just how it's going to be. But I think God's timing is going to be perfect. I don't think that I don't think he means it in such a way, right? And so, this is also carpe diem, right? This is seize the day. This is take advantage of the day. Don't let it go to waste, right? We're not promised tomorrow, and that's part of the outro that I now do, right? For Noble Fathers, we're not promised tomorrow, so we must be present. We must be intentional, and that's very much what Noble Father is all about. And so I'd encourage you to be present and intentional with your children, even if they're away from the home, even if they are on their own self-discovery journey. Be intentional and present. Love on your children. Be unattached. Give them over to God, and remove yourself. Remove yourself from that journey. Let them discover it, and be ready. Be ready for whenever they come over that hill. Sit patiently. Don't go looking for your children. Sit patiently and wait for your son or your daughter to crest over that hill. And when they come back, welcome them back with the signet ring, the cloak on the back, and to kill the fattened calf to welcome them back. That is, if there's anything that you need in terms of an example of what to do for your children, it's the father in the prodigal son journey. It's not always easy to do, and I'm not looking forward to that day where I think that might happen for my family. But I think God has his reasons. God has his purpose, and God will encounter our children in a personal and very real way, and it'll never look the same as we want it to look. It'll be personal to them. It'll make sense to them, but it'll open them up to the opportunity to have a relationship with God of their own free will. And so it'll all be in their timing. Obviously, continue to pray for them, right? Continue to seek your community, right? Because I guarantee you, if you go ask other people who have had children, who are older, whatever, or in that same phase, they will have the same struggles. And that is what community is for. That is what relationships and friendships in the community is for, is to uphold each other and to help each other, support each other through those things. And so that's really what I want to share for today's episode. I hope that you think about your life in a way of, how are you finding your way? Are you at that fork in the road? And are you choosing to step into that leadership role? Are you finding and are you doing what you are called to do and put on this planet to do? If you have any concerns about that, and if you're looking to have questions answered, I'd love to hold that space for you. speaking into purpose and intention and into a life of purpose has been what my coaching has really what brought me to life and has helped other people come to that understanding of who is God called me to be? What has God given to me? And that conversation, the space held in that environment has been one of profound understanding, of one of profound realization of what we are actually capable of. And I'd love to help you discover that. The beauty of it is that the journey and the answers that you get have to come from the inside out. God has already imprinted his DNA into you. He has put these things within you to be discovered by you. Essentially, this is a gift that you must unwrap. It's already been given to you. And so how I lead in that is to really use questions and through a specific methodology to help you understand and to find what those things are, to ask you questions about your experiences. What do you like? What don't you like? And going from there, because I'm sure as you start to go into the discovery of it, you find that there's actually a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of options out there, right? I'm sure you're resonating with that already, is that, man, there's so many things I want to do, but I don't know what thing to pursue. What is that thing? And prayerfully seeking and finding that space to go into those questions and understanding who we are at the bedrock helps us to figure out what is our leadership, what is the path of leadership that God wants us to take on? Who is it that God wants us to help and serve? Because that answer is going to be for God's glory. That is ultimately what he wants. And what's beautiful is that because he is a God of love, he wants you to share that love with other people. It's not meant to be kept for yourself. And so, hopefully this episode makes sense to you and that all ties in together and wraps it all into a bow for you. And thank you for joining in and tuning into this episode. And also if you have any words of encouragement or anything you want to say to me, or any feedback you want to give me, it's sometimes very difficult for me to put these episodes out because I release them and then I feel like nobody's listened to them or whatever. The imposter syndrome comes out. It's always good to hear feedback from people. Especially like the mother that, talked to me yesterday about it. If there's anything that you feel that any encouragement that you can give me, please do, because it spurs me on. And this is actually the 2-year anniversary of the podcast. I've been faithfully putting these out every single week. And, some days are very dry and very taxing on me. But I don't envision myself stopping, and I'm going to continue speaking into this. This is what God has called me to do, and I really feel led to do this. And so, thank you for tuning in, and please don't be discouraged by the prodigal son journey that your children undertake. God has a reason and God has a way. And I think that, if you lean in and you remove yourself and give it up to God, he will not leave you hanging. And so, thank you for tuning in. Remember, we are not promised tomorrow, so stay present and be noble. Thank you.